Welcome once again to Postcard, and we've got a special guest. Leigh's departed, well, I thought he departed the mortal coil, not quite, but in his place we have got an abominable snowman, Yeti, but take a look yourselves.
Dobry den.
Yeah, okay. Listen, it suits you, Leigh. We can see.
Thank you very much. This is a fashion statement from Slovakia. It's snowing. It's snowing out there. Christmas has gone. Snow, freezing, COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, visitors, Christmas visitors. Thank you very much. That's not what I asked for. Anyway, yeah. Look, it's me.
No, put it back on. Put it back on. Listen, we've been complaining about the cold. I mean, it's probably going to scrape 60 degrees in southern Portugal in our money, and we're frozen. So I don't know how you go on. I mean, today Britain's had its coldest night for years, which is minus 12 degrees centigrade. But that's peanuts compared with you.
Exactly, that's nude bathing weather over here. Yeah, you go out in your scanties and jump in a pond with your stolen ducks. Yeah, no, honestly, it has been minus 30 over here, and that's why you have to wear all these clothes. Look, yeah, you have to wear one of these.
Oh my God! Well, they say it's layers that are important. If you've got lots of layers rather than a great thick jumper.
Yeah, exactly. Thermal vest.
Oh God! Well, that's your age, but I mean, go on. Right, we're going to move on.
Move yourself up again.
Yes, we're going to move on from thermal vests, and we're going to talk about the mad, inverted commas, revolution of electric cars. And more importantly, for those that are self-drive automatic cars. In other words, you put your thumb out, it stops, taxi-wise, you get in, no driver, and it takes to where you want to go. Now they're extending that, of course, to your own car now, and how frightening. Let me give you some statistics. What a word, it should be banned. And 90% of accidents on UK roads are caused by drivers. It's their own fault, in other words. So it's a fault situation. They've lost concentration, disobeyed the law, they've too much pop, whatever. 90%, that's a lot. So the insurance company's idea is to get everybody in driverless cars. So they tried it. They've come a bit unstuck, and a lot of people have jumped off the roundabout already because it's trickier than they thought, and I'll tell you why. If you're driving in fog or snow or ice, the clever little computer cannot decipher that and will carry the same speed, as an example. And that leads to problems. But do you want the pleasure of your driving taken off you, Leigh?
Well, that's the point, isn't it? I drive, like, you know, a big black limo. And before I moved out here, I also drove a big black truck with all the chrome metalwork on the back. And I also had a Range Rover Discovery with holes in the floor. That tried to kill me every time I went out in it. And the reason I had 3 cars was because I lived out in the countryside. The truck like delivered wood. The Range Rover took us out across muddy fields in its 4x4 capacity, and the Bentley took us on holiday and wherever we had to go to, like Summerfield or Safeway.
I must step in at this stage and point out to the viewer, before he turns off thinking that rich blankety blank, it's not an actual Bentley. I know it's superior to a Bentley, but it's and it's not on a homemade job. It's something you've got from, is it the States, and then done it up?
No, was a complete travesty and a fallacy. What happened was Chrysler bought the design or whatever, the design rights or something that they had to have, and created the Chrysler baby Bentley. Now, it isn't a baby, it's a big baby. It's as big as a British Bentley. And some people, including me, say it is superior, it looks better, and it was £150,000 cheaper. And they also did the same with the Rolls Royce. They did exactly the same, and turned out this most incredibly funny cartoon Rolls Royce. The baby Bentley, which is what I've got, is just incredible. It looks like if you watch a film involving criminals in New York or LA in the year from say 2008 onwards, they all drive the big black baby Bentley like what I do, and that's because it's a criminal car. You look like a criminal, and over here the mafia's scared of me because of my car. So anyway, what I was saying is that I had 3 cars which were all driving cars because I like driving. Now, I had a look at these electric cars when they came up. That's fine. They're fine if you want to drive around like a little old lady in a car, or whatever they call you, car. Or you want to drive around in the modern equivalent to a bubble car. If you want to have no style and have no class and have no anything that's worth having as far as driving is concerned, buy an electric car. Try and plug it in. My mate over here, right, he's got a Tesla electric car. I think it cost him something like £350,000 because he's quite well off actually. And he has to drive all the way from Bratislava to Poprad, which is like 9 hours. And he's got to plug it in twice along the way. What a load of rubbish!
Well, it's not there yet. We've talked about this in the past. They've not sorted the battery problem out, and they're jumping too quick. And as also we've mentioned in the past, when you get a very, very good, and a lot of the German cars in particular have got these very, very pure running engines with the blue additive for the fuel. You can smoke the exhaust and breathe in as much as you like. Not quite.
I've never used that. I have to use super diesel.
Ah, that's the way they get around it.
Yeah, super diesel is probably, say, about 20, I don't know, I can't translate it at the minute. But anyway, it's a lot dearer than ordinary diesel. But it is like driving a rocket. My car weighs 2.5 tons, or maybe a bit more, I don't know, because I've just made that up, but it's very heavy. And you put your foot down, it still, at 12 years old, does 0 to 60 in less than a day. It's incredible. It's amazing. Yeah. And it does on a run, quite seriously, we get 55 to 60 miles to the gallon out of it. It's diesel. And on around town, we get around about 30 to 35. I don't want an electric car. I don't want to be driving around in a little put. What if you lose your batteries? Where do you go, Woolworths, to get your batteries? What do you do? No, give us a car that looks like a car.
We've lost all the lady viewers now, and one has to say before we go off this subject, I understand that Tesla are bringing out before the end of the year a new car, and in the older days, if you went 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, you were top of the tree.
Yeah.
The Tesla will do 0 to 60 in less than 1.9. That is exponential. That is frightening. Will people be able to control it if you think about it?
Well, yeah, to be honest, mine does do at its age, because I've serviced it regularly. It's really well looked after. Mine actually does do 0 to 60 in just over 4 seconds. And yeah, it's incredibly, impeccably controllable at that. But if you halve that, where you just put your foot down and it goes, and your head hits the back of the seat, and like your wife ends up in the back seat. You know, it's going to be a bit dangerous.
Yeah, well,
myself.
Yeah, we'll yes, we'll put that in the back of our imaginations. That could be a good thing, actually. But then it would be really backseat drivers. Oh, behave yourself.
I know.
We should move on to something a bit sad, actually, because Jerry and Jerry and the Pacemakers passed away this last week. And he was a great performer. He was a great songwriter. In fact, he knocked the Beatles off for a short time with 3 #1 hits in his career.
1963 that was, though.
Some time ago. Actually, we came across Jerry. We were filming him in Christchurch on the south coast. And pre-concert, I went to see him. Now, he had been suffering. I didn't really know how much for a number of years. He's had bad heart, various other things, bad knees, well, ironically, of course, had to be fitted with a pacemaker.
I wasn't going to make that. I wasn't going to laugh when you said that, but it's obvious.
It's true. And he wasn't in the best of moods. It's very difficult when you have to talk to an artist before going on stage anyway. You've got to be very, some of them get really worked up, and they need it to really stay in top form during 90 minutes of performance. But he wasn't well. Legend, of course, because of the Rodgers and Hammerstein hit. For the Liverpool supporters, we've got to say, well done, Liverpool, last year, but they've adopted that as their song. Now, we're losing all the great 60s artists, isn't it sad?
Yeah, there is. If you go to the Leigh G. Banks Preservation Society, there's quite an interesting article on there. I say it's interesting because I wrote it and I found it interesting. But the wonderful, the incredible, the amazing, the stunning, the charming, the witty Bob Dylan actually eulogized. He didn't eulogize him, it's the wrong word, but marked Jerry Marsden's existence as a performing artist twice in different times. In his latest opus, which is Murder Most Foul, he mentions Ferry Across the Mersey, sorry, it's not Across the Mersey, in the lyrics of that particular song. And he mentioned him in, I think it was his Pulitzer Prize speech, as one of the major movements. He also had a wander around in 2006, had a wander around Liverpool, looking actually ostensibly for John Lennon's house, but went looking up Jerry Marsden as well. He was respected throughout the industry, and I only met him once very early on in the 70s, very briefly, probably in similar circumstances, and he was, I don't like this as a phrase, but people seem to think it gives some respect. I don't think it does particularly, but you could only describe him as a very nice, ordinary bloke. He didn't have an inflated ego at that time. He was just friendly. And like by the end of his life, when you met him, or towards the end, he probably was suffering, and that makes a difference to the way you act, doesn't it? Yeah. Sad that he's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get into COVID briefly, if we can this week. We have to, because it's making all the headlines. And things are emerging from all over the world about this, but the consensus seems to be, with certain pundits, you thought 2020 was bad. Just wait till you get into 2021. Now, what's driven this, sadly, is the fact that there are various viruses mutating, some a lot more rapidly than the original one. Well, this is normal. It will be. The original virus, of course, is fighting for its own life. So it will mutate to make sure it carries on. That's the way things happen. In various figures, no doubt they'll change them every 5 minutes, but the bottom line is you've got a situation on one level, the injections, the vaccinations are coming out on one side, and on the other side, you've got the exponential curve of the virus. And who's going to win? If the virus wins, real problems. So we are at a real crossroads at the moment, Leigh.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you're absolutely right. To talk about here, because I think it is interesting to talk about here under these circumstances. I don't want to say here, I mean Slovakia. Slovakia is a very small country, 5.5 million people, and but it has managed to stay ahead of the virus quite well. In as much that we're now in almost total lockdown, and the figures in the last few days have risen here so dramatically, it's quite frightening. We've actually have our first case of what is being described as the English COVID, which I think is a bit churlish, but people are saying, like that nice Donald Trump is saying that it's the China virus. Well, all the nice people in Europe are saying that the new one is the English virus. Well, it isn't. Don't be stupid. But Slovakia has decided that to go ahead with a lockdown, which is massive, and next Tuesday begins a great campaign of vaccinations. Now, they have at the moment enough vaccinations to do probably at least a third of the population, and expect within 2 weeks or 3 weeks to have enough to do a second round of vaccination. What really annoys me about it, though, I'm not annoyed with Slovakia, well done Slovakia. Do you know how much they're having to pay for the vaccine? It's incredible. 15.50 euros a jab. And that's they're being helped because they couldn't afford it as a country. They couldn't afford to pay that. They couldn't afford it. So the European Union is helping them out. But what happened to the stories about, oh yes, all these companies are going to be really good and give it away for free and do it as a special deal? 15 euros a jab?
Yeah, it's diabolical. There's only the Oxford, let's call it, vaccine that comes in at $3 that's going to go ahead. But I've heard some breaking news this morning that I've got to check out, that there's something behind that, but I'm not going to say any more at this stage.
Oh, you little team.
Back door somewhere. Anyway, listen, before we leave the virus, lots of countries maybe, and again, as we've mentioned at the passing, are getting a bit naughty. Spain, for instance, is saying, if you don't have the vax, then you'll be on a list. And there are certain things you won't be able to do. Freedom springs to mind in all that. Of course, 60% of the French don't want it. No doubt Mr. Macron will come in and think of some clever way of getting that sorted out. But this is going against our freedoms, inverted commas.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, the effect on our freedom is really something that we do have to start to look at. And, you know, I say this every week, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but things start to bother me. You know, when you look at the fact that the most powerful man in the world has done everything he can to destroy democracy, and then all over Europe, and particularly, you know, in Spain, France, and now in the UK, we're having all our senses of freedom taken away from us. It might be in our best interests, but that's what H.G. Wells said in 1984, in his book 1984. It's what Brave New World said in the 1930s. It's what all the dystopia films say now. It's in your best interest. Is it in our best interest, or should we actually go out and continue our life and face what this could do to us and maintain our freedom? What we're getting is anarchy on the streets because of this. That is also a curtailment of freedom.
Indeed. Well, we've been written to by somebody this week with a solution to the problem, because of course we all realise we've got to get this vaccine going very, very quickly. And there is a solution, Leigh, and as soon as he pointed this out to me, I thought of you. I don't know why. He said, you can do the job in 7 to 10 days maximum.
Yeah.
No, it's true. You open every pub in Britain and you inject it into a pint, problem solved.
It isn't though, because you're not supposed to take alcohol with the vaccine. What is a true one, and was said in the same series of memes on that ridiculous place Facebook, was if you can train up soldiers, firemen, policemen, people who are on the dole, to be marshals, to inject people, why not give the job to the people at supermarkets? Because that's where we're all allowed to go. And as you walk through, you get your fish and chips, you get your beer, you get your wine, and you have a quick jab like that. Now that actually could be a solution. It would slow down the process of panic buying a bit as well. So yeah, why not do that? Why not do that? I made a mistake as I fled Britain just before Christmas of trying to return the hire car I had. And instead of going right, I went left. And I ended up in a car park where there were hundreds of cars. They were having the test. And everybody was orderly, everybody was friendly, everybody was okay with it. It was taking a while. But why can't we do that now? It's not hard. It's not hard to do the injection. Train people to do it.
Well, I was going to leave this till a bit later, but we'll tackle it now. You've raised it. By the way, I hope people were listening to the Leigh G. Banks shopping basket in the supermarket. Starts off with fish and chips, finishes up with wine. But yeah, that sums the guy up. Now we had an answer to that one. And the sad thing is that at the beginning of the pandemic, recently retired doctors and nurses were invited to come and help out. And 50,000 volunteered.
Yeah.
5,000 so far have been accepted. Now, can I point out right at the beginning, surprisingly, for once, this is not the government. It's the NHS. So why only 5,000? Because the forms they have to fill in are unbelievable. And I tell you straight out, which is an absolute scandal, are more interested in woke than they are in sorting the nation out. Yeah. Because the main question that they find difficult to fill in is about diversity. Come on, they ask no qualifications. Now, of course, there is a problem at times, but one in a lot, many, many thousands, that you can suffer a reaction and you need to get an injection and other treatment very quickly. Okay, so you have to go somewhere that has got the basic medical facilities, and if you enter into this shock, then you can be treated.
Yeah.
They ask no questions or qualifications on that, which is a vital important thing, but they want diversity experience. More than that, they have now stated that nurses and doctors, if they are upset by racism, as an example, or sexism, they can refuse to treat the patient. Now, what nonsense. where's the Hippocratic oath? I can think of another oath I would like to issue with that sort of mentality.
Yeah, you're right. This has been something that's been growing, particularly in Britain, over the past decade, and longer, really, probably the last 20 years. But it's certainly got to the proportions of absolute stupidity. Here's a very quick example. I live in the countryside when I'm in Britain, miles from the nearest city. And so I needed a wire for my computer. It was just a plug-in for something. So I phoned up a major retailer and said, do you have any of these plugs, these wires, these plugins? Because I've got to make a 60-mile round trip to come and get it. I don't want to just drive out and take a chance. They said, yes, sir, you've got it. Yes, we have one. I'm looking at one now. So we jumped in the car, drove to this particular store, went in, saw a middle-aged woman. Nothing wrong with middle-aged women. You know, middle-aged women can be glorious. I'll
take your word for that, Leigh.
It's what?
I'll take your word for that, Leigh.
There's nothing wrong with MILFs. And like, you might want to say that out.
The grannies are writing in already. The post box is going there.
Yeah, anyway, so I went up to this young lady who, in her middle age, very attractive, Rubenesque proportions, and said to her, I've come to pick this particular plug-in wire up, and she went away for 30 seconds and said, I'm sorry, we don't have one. I said, well, we phoned up and we were told that you did have one. She said, I'm sorry, I can confirm that we didn't have one. I said, well, I've just done a 60-mile round trip to get this wire after phoning your store. Her reaction then was to say, I'm doing my best to help you, sir. I will not be spoken to in that way. I said, I haven't said anything. I've just said I've done 60 jobs. And she started to cry and phoned the security guard, who then treated me in a way that I should have started crying because it was so rude to me, because I told this woman I'd had a 60-mile round trip to get a wire that she was saying they hadn't got. Anyway, they found the wire and they sold, and she sulked and she had a sniffle while she sold it to me and everything. But I was treated like rubbish for doing nothing. And how many times does it happen when you get onto a bank where you've been hanging on for 3 hours and you say, I've been hanging on for 3 hours to speak to you. You say, I'm sorry, sir, I will not be spoken to in that way. And they hang up on you. It's a ludicrous, outrageous way. The service industry is in tatters in Britain, and the people who work in that industry should pull their fingers out and do what's right. Offer service.
Well, Leigh's right, but the answer, of course, is, Leigh, stick with the grannies. They're tougher. They know what it's all about. We can get a bit better than this diversity bit over the pond. One of the first things that, it won't be long before you will regret all these monstrous statements that you use against the darling Donald, because they've started already, the Dems, the Democratic Party. First of all, is he going to last? He's not going to last 4 years. And then will we have the mad, inverted commas? We think our lady friend up the north of the border is Brad. Wait till Zaris gets in the White House, if she can, if she does. My goodness me, the first thing that they're going to do is to treat gender personal pronouns in the correct way. So in Congress, in future, you will please not say mummy, daddy, father, mother, son. They banned it. It's got to be sibling. Honestly, Leigh, the alternatives are laughable. They want this on the law books immediately. And it goes worse, and it's already happened, because at the start of some of the meetings in Congress, they have a prayer. Well,
Yeah.
the minister stands up there and he finishes off the prayer, amen, and a women. Honestly, you couldn't write the script.
Well, if that is right, I've not heard any of this.
No, it is right. I've checked it out.
Yeah. Well, amen is nothing to do with men.
No, of course it means let it be so. Sounds like from Star Trek. But they say, and he said, amen, and a women, go away.
I know. It is, yeah. I've heard these sort of things said over the years anyway. And they're just laughable. They're just things that
exactly
get laughed out. If Stumbling Joe is really going after that, which, you know, there's not many holes in my general sort of knowledge, and I don't know that. If it was a serious thing and it was likely to end up on the statute books, then I think there'd be a lot of people up in arms about it. It's like when people wanted to rewrite Christmas as whatever it was, I can't remember now. They wanted to rename Easter as something else as well. It's these stories appear, and they're misunderstood. Because sometimes they just come out of think tanks, and it's a suggestion, and the suggestion to change amen to a women. It's just funny. It's just funny. It's just silly.
Well, it's just to us, Leigh. But I mean, when you get people that are so woke, they pick up things like this and they make an example. Now, we're looking here about fake news. And Ian Hislop did a program last week that was on the Beeb about what is fake news. It started in 1890 in America, where they wanted to get a particular newspaper, the Sun of America, actually, nothing to do with the Sun in Britain, on the go, and all sorts of things were being said, naughty things, and then things got balanced a little bit. But it's frightening of the power of the press. And one of the things that was highlighted was Cuba, that was really in a mess. And because the red tops, or the equivalent of the red tops in America about that time, were so anti-Cuba, they actually facilitated the invasion by America of Cuba and changed history for Cuba at that stage. So there is real power in the press. There is real power in the unofficial press, called perhaps the social media. Now, that is one video that's been doing the rounds at the moment, and everybody's saying, you've got to watch this video. So everything comes across our desk here, and I think, oh, for goodness sake. But it was very well done. It was a lady that was going around various hospitals in the UK, showing empty wards, empty corridors, empty everything. What is the problem, she stated. And it's going viral. It had over 1 million views in a day. Her language was a bit poetic, and she fitted all the woke characters of her background. I won't go into that. And that's the first thing that made me think, wait, is this genuine? Well, yes, she did go into hospitals and see empty this, and where's the problem? We've got loads of people we can fill. Well, each of the 4 particular hospital managements have said, not publicly or as publicly as they should say, well, look, we've got to empty wards for ordinary patients so that we can get them ready for the COVID patients. This is where we're at. Of course, we find out that this lady and others like her were making a fortune on YouTube and other distribution media for what they were doing. Now that, Leigh, is naughty. People out of untruths. Don't believe what you see, especially if it's on the World Wide Web.
Okay, yeah, I agree. You see what you do. the World Wide Web is a fantasy island within the world of media. It's unregulated. Let's not go down the path we do every week, but it's unregulated. The regulation that's coming in. Now, here's an example of something else from this week, right? One of my stories of the Leigh G. Banks Preservation Society suddenly appeared in I found it on the web in the London Daily. Now, that looks like a newspaper, acts like a newspaper, and does everything. So I thought, oh, how's my story gone there? So I thought, well, I'll send some more in. And sure enough, a couple went on. So I thought, I'll bring the editor up. Because the London Daily isn't a newspaper, doesn't exist, never has existed. Eddie Sharp, back in the 90s, actually came up with the idea of creating a newspaper called the London Daily, but it never really happened. So I started to look for the editor of the London Daily. So I could have a chat with him and say, well, I can send you loads of stuff. Do you know who the editor of the London Daily is?
Go on.
An artificial intelligence robot programmed to check and look at news. Now, that is the first news site, I am sure, ever to be run by a robot. Now, that is where the problem lies with social media news. It's all robots. Now you look quizzically at me then. Now, there is no editor of the London Daily.
I know, I was just thinking one robot could probably do the same job as us two together. No, I wasn't. I mean, it is a problem, and it's worth pointing this out. It's frightening because it's the nuances of stories and what's behind the story, which an artificial mind cannot get near.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, for years we've been bamboozled by people such as the Reverend David Attenborough, who you...
Oh, what's that poor old little David Attenborough done to you now?
There are two theories, of course, about mankind. One is that we developed from monkeys. The other is the Big Bang, etc. And
well, you're all created by a Big Bang.
Yeah, we won't go into that in detail. But whatever the right of either of them, let's discuss the thing. Well, I've got a question for you in all this. And it's a simple question, but when people say, well, we've all been derived from monkeys, have you ever seen a monkey, or any other animal for that matter, that can read a book?
Yeah, well, no, but I've seen monkeys that can paint. I've seen monkeys that can actually write novels, apparently. Most of them are on sites on the internet.
No, the point behind the casual remark is the fact that there is a mega difference. This is another planet when you analyse what it takes to write or read a book compared with the monkey that can probably eat a peanut and scratch his head. I know it can do more than that, but it is mega. Come on, let's get reality into these conversations.
Yeah, but it's progression, isn't it? It's the progression of the species. It's like, the going back to COVID, that's mutated into something else, something which is less controllable. And the theory of us being coming around from monkeys is surely the same. What we're saying is that monkeys, we progressed, we changed, we mutated from that strain. What it's talking about is the physical makeup of the animal, the ability to stand on two legs and things like that. Now, I'm not saying I particularly believe it, but there is a logic there. Like there is a logic that we've progressed from an amoeba living in a lake or a pond somewhere. But can we just return very briefly, because I'm interested in this airy monkey reading a book.
Well, before you do about reading the book, I want the viewers to look directly into your eyes.
My eyes?
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard about the missing link. We saw him originally at the beginning of the program. There he is. So I retract my previous statement.
As Schnoz said, I've done it. I found the missing link. Yeah. Yeah, but no, just go back to the COVID thing and hospitals. If you read, instead of reading social media and watching YouTube, if you read the press, the traditional press, you will have noticed that story after story after story has been written on the varying different points of view about British hospitals and why they've gone that way. And that's because the traditional media knows how to find a story and how to investigate it. Some person on YouTube who just says, oh, I'll do this, I'll say this. They aren't the missing links. They're not even that clever, most of them. Some are good, some are good.
Well, there you go. Yes, what goes around comes around. And listen, we've got to go.
It's a monkey.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Monkey? Isn't it a gerbil that goes around and come around?
That could be a hamster.
That'll do for me. Right, finally, our final rant today, and this will get you going. There's been a great deal of disappointment, as there always is, of course, a couple of times a year when the announcements are arise, Sir whoever. This particular time it's arise, Sir Hamilton. And the other party to this conversation is clear off Nigel Farage. What have you done for the country? Analyse, discuss, Leigh.
What? Analyse and discuss Nigel Farage?
No, equality. If we're talking about equality, we have got dear quite young actually, Monaco resident paying very little taxes in the United Kingdom with, and as we did touch on it last time, and he gets his knighthood. Lots of people get their knighthood. Nigel has got us out of a fate worse than death, many people think.
Yes, he has. And I agree with that. But let's have a look at Mr. Hamilton first. Yeah, he lives in Monaco, or however you want to say it. You're from Salford, I'm from Manchester. I say Monaco. You say Monaco. Yeah. So.
Let's get that right. Stretford. Never mind Salford.
Yeah, posh Salford. Yeah, rooms up the house.
How the BBC ever moved to Salford? Well, it didn't. It tried to. It tried to coerce all its employees to go to Salford, and they rejected it. That's why they've had to keep going down south. I'm not going to live in the northwest of England. It rains in Manchester. Manchester and Salford, the uninitiated cities are like that. They're one of the same practice.
Yeah, you still couldn't get across Bramhall Street in Manchester, though. You weren't allowed in.
No,
that's I made Bramhall Street up because I can't remember what the street was called. No. But yeah, no. But going on about Hamilton, quite seriously, he has done for Britain. It depends if you respect the honours system, the Queen's honours system. I don't respect it. I don't particularly disrespect it. But he has done a lot of good for Britain. He's highlighted Britain's ability. He's done a lot of good for the motor industry. He's been an exotic figure, a hero.
Look, I've got to interrupt, mate, because of course he has. But it's his job, Leigh. I want seeing people rewarded for extracurricular activities. For
they only get one.
Well, exactly. Well, I know the reason, but I'm not going to tell everybody.
So it was Hamilton's job to do what he did. And it was positive. What he did was positive. Positive. That was what he did.
Well, no, he's doing his job. I'm not going to reward anybody. He's got enough rewards for doing his job. If he sets up a charity and then spends half his time in the charity, great. Sir Lewis, arrive. But when you're all right, you know, when you're good at a job acting or actressing, which they don't like these days, but I shall say, then, you know, you're doing your job. I want something special. Otherwise,
who should get a one then? Who should get a reward?
Your local postman, maybe, that delivers letters that he's not required to deliver, helps the old ladies out when they can't bend down to receive the letters. That's the person that wants. I know it's boring, but let's be honest, Leigh, what this is all about is showbiz.
Yeah, of course it is. It's about positivity. It's about a positive view of the world. As we've lived through crisis upon crisis upon crisis since, in my memory, we'll say back to the 1940s, we're at war. In the 60s, everybody was on drugs. In the 70s, we had the breakdown of British society, rubbish on the street. We've lived from crisis to crisis to crisis, and we need a bit of positivity in that. The benefit to having a gong is that it's a recognition of your ability to do something. Now, I can get you, I might do it for you next year for Christmas. I can get you a gong from a principality which allows you to be known as Lord Rodney, and it will cost me 28 quid. Now, I think that's wrong, even though I know the man who does it, and he's a friend of mine, if you're watching. And I think that's wrong, but he does own an island, which is a principality.
Yes, well, I've already got my lordship and dukeship.
Yeah.
But I have, and we'll leave that for another day. We've got to go.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes, with that thought in mind. And anyway, it could never happen to you, Sir Leigh. Well, he's surly enough without being called Sir Leigh.
Yeah, the grumpy old man.
That's it. See you, Leigh.
Bye-bye.